This is my custom PSA build, the Just As Good 15. Today we're going to be using it to test out some bipods. If you go looking for bipod recommendations online, you pretty much get three options. You get the Atlas, the Magpul, or the Harris. Today we're going to be taking a look at all three of these, as well as the most popular bipod on Amazon. This is typically for bolt-action rifles or semi-automatic rifles in a full-power cartridge. Now, they are also popular with people that put a high-power scope on their AR-15 and pretend their 5.56 rifle is now an SPR, effective at 1,000 yards. We're going to start off with the Atlas because I think this one is going to do the best, and I wanted to set the bar for the others. Well, I was wrong about Atlas doing the best. It looks like one of the legs broke off. You can see a piece of it here. The other leg came off over here. That screw here that kind of holds it all together just sheared straight off. I had high hopes for the Atlas. Maybe I shouldn't jump straight to smacking this against concrete, huh? Gotta draw out the YouTube content. I'm gonna do the Magpul now and not start smashing it into concrete. Maybe we'll kind of work up to that. Here we go. My little red dot broke. And 10. I don't see anything particularly bad. Leg works fine. That leg works fine. So far, so good. Now let's see if I can break this just like the Atlas. The answer is yes. And I'm glad I'm here to test that for you. Just breaking my shit and posting it online. Next up, we have the Harris. This bipod is installed backwards. Next up, we have the Harris. Given how the Atlas and Magpul went, I don't think this is going to go any different, but we'll give it a go. Some drop testing first. One of the legs came a bit extended, but seems to be fine. Let's smack it. I did not swing at full speed on that because even though I'm totally fine with breaking this, part of me is like, I just bought this and now I'm just smashing it against concrete. So a little bit of me held back there. I'm not gonna do that again. Huh, all right. My mount broke that screwed it into my 2x4. The actual rail that I had just screwed in there broke off. I put a new rail on here, 3 screws holding it into the 2x4. I'm gonna full force smash it into concrete, and if it survives this, I will be really impressed. I broke another rail. This is a metal rail. The last one was metal too. We'll take it inside and take a look at it. So we're inside now, and let's take a look at exactly what went wrong. Starting with the Atlas, I had the highest hopes for this one. I thought that everything up here would be really solid, and what would happen was these legs would bend, and that was the worst thing that was going to happen to the Atlas. What ended up happening is this little screw completely sheared off. This goes in there, you can see it on this side, and holds the entire leg assembly together. And that was the failure mechanism for the Atlas. The Magpul seemed to have failed in a very similar way. We can see kind of how the pieces go back together. The Harris was an absolute surprise. Look at that. You can see this was screwed flush against the 2x4, this rail. There's one screw here, and one screw here. And instead of something breaking on the Harris, the actual metal rail, this is like metal rail. The other one was metal too. You can see this is the other one, and just how bent this was. The only thing that seemed to go wrong with the Harris is that I can no longer push down this button and extend the legs. That seems to be locked in place now. I'm not sure exactly what the deal with that is. I'm gonna have to play around with it and see if I can get these to open up. Now what my plan is to put a third rail on my 2x4 and see if the strength comes from the inherent design and compare the Harris to the cheapo Amazon CVLIFE, or if there actually is something special about the Harris in the build quality or materials they use that really makes it considerably stronger than the others. So I swapped out the rail and I put 2 big ass deck screws holding the new rail, the third rail, into the 2x4. Now I have the CVLIFE screwed on it. So first off, we're going to do some drop tests. And 10. The legs don't spring out. In fact, this one won't even lock into place anymore. And this one is stuck in position. Oh, I got it to click back in. All right, now we can smash it. It's totally fine. Let's do it again. I should have started with the CVLIFE. Oh, Houston, we have some bending. If you'll notice, this leg is skewed. I mean, it still works. You know what? Let's keep going. I'm just going to keep smashing it until this one breaks. That didn't have to take long. Oh, it didn't break. My rail mount broke. Multiple failures. The bipod broke and my rail mount broke. Definitely impressed. As long as you don't go smashing your bipod into concrete repeatedly as hard as you can, your bipod's probably not going to break. But that's not what you're here for. Looking at what actually happened, the nub, that's the sling swivel attachment point for this, completely sheared off from my mount and is still attached to the CVLIFE. You can see it here, and it just sheared straight off. You can also see, if that's me putting it flat against the table, just how crooked the bipod is. This is toast. Both the Harris and the CVLIFE exceeded my expectations, especially the CVLIFE. And other than the legs not extending on the Harris, this bipod is totally fine. The CVLIFE took a bit more of a beating and is a bit in worse shape. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to email all of the customer support for all the companies and tell them I broke my bipod and see which company has the best warranty service. And so I've heard back from 3 out of the 4 companies. Both Magpul and Harris decided to ship me a brand new bipod, no questions asked. Atlas actually took the time to replace the bipod I sent them, and overall the customer service from all 3 companies was excellent. They took a day or 2 to get back to my first email, and from the time of the first email I sent until the bipod was back in my hands was less than 2 weeks, and that includes shipping both ways. So overall the customer service was excellent with all 3 companies. The CVLIFE was awful. I sent them 3 emails and a couple phone calls, no response. So basically you have to go through Amazon customer service if you're going to try and warranty replace or something. So using all that information, what are my final conclusions on bipods going forward? The CVLIFE surprised me. It's a pretty good value at the cost, and if you're just shooting bench rest at the range, like most people are, totally fine option. Put your money into something that matters more, like a barrel or trigger. The Atlas also surprised me. I was really expecting it to hold up better, especially for how expensive it is. I don't see the cost benefit of getting an Atlas over a Magpul nowadays. I like the controls on the Magpul better, so I think I'm just going to buy that going forward for ARs. Hunting rifles, or rifles that have a sling swivel at the front, I think I'm going to stick with Harris. You really can beat the shit out of them, and if you were in a position where you were actually going to consider beating the shit out of a rifle and needed a good bipod, I think Harris is the no-brainer. It's just inherent to the design. It's a much stronger bipod.